Chapter 29, 316. Madison's brain slowly became aware of the growing light. This awareness was followed by the realization that she was not in her own bed. She sat up quickly as full recall came back. Ryan was in another strange bed beside hers, covered with a soft, furry blanket, still asleep. Unpronounceable was at his computer, studying 5 articles of text at the same time. They were scrolling upward on the massive display at varying rates. He turned when he sensed Madison was awake. "Good morning, Madison," he said. "Did you sleep well?" Madison was stunned. She nudged Ryan urgently. He sat up and stretched. "Good morning," said Madison to their host, not wanting to seem rude and call him unpronounceable, now that, apparently, he could speak perfect English. "My name is 3 clicks at a low frequency, 1 at a higher frequency, and finally 6 more at the lower frequency. You may call me 316 since, as you say, our names are unpronounceable by human mouths. Are you hungry? I can make us some nice baked fish." He didn't wait for their answer and slid off his bench. As he made his way to the opposite side of the room, a low countertop grew out of the wall. Madison and Ryan exchanged shocked looks. "Please speak freely," 316 called over to them. "I will attempt not to listen to your private conversation. If you need to use the toilet, I have created a room for you there." He pointed to an arched doorway, blocked by a door with frosted privacy glass. He learned English in 1 day. "Less than a day," whispered Ryan. "Should we be worried? Oh, and he has a magical house that can make its own furniture. Clearly, we're dealing with a superior intelligence and an advanced level of technology." "You are a guest at my home? You will not be harmed," 316 said, as he retrieved some fish fillets from a compartment in the wall. "So much for not listening," whispered Madison. "My hearing is excellent, and you are not being quiet enough. Also, the 16 family has difficulty avoiding eavesdropping. I will try harder," he said, as he tapped the controls of the glass oven. "My people have a saying, you are far from home, but you are close to friends." Madison leaned in to whisper something else in Ryan's ear, but as soon as her warm breath brushed against his neck, he stood up quickly. I have to go," he said, and hurried off to their new bathroom. Madison shrugged and joined 316 in his strange kitchen. A table made of the same rounded glass material rose from the floor. She sat on the accompanying bench. "Are you and Ryan married?" asked 316 casually. "No," she said quickly. We work together." "Is there not mutual interest?" "It's complicated." The bathroom door opened, and Ryan habitually reached for a light switch that didn't exist. He joined Madison in the kitchen and took a seat on the smooth, rounded glass bench. "So we're having fish for breakfast?" asked Ryan. "Yes, I like fish," 316 said, "and I have read that you do as well. It will be a common experience and help us bond, creating a closer relationship." "I suppose that's true," said Ryan. "It says in the book that the octopus of your world does not have a digestive tract, and the mouth simply expels what is not digested. That is disgusting. We do not do that," 316 assured them. Madison moved her head slightly to the side to peek around 316. He noticed and turned toward her in irritation. "My species deals with food in the same way yours does, I assure you." 316 presented each of them with a glass of water as the oven's red icons blinked a countdown in alien characters. "I have many questions that the book does not address." "Fire away. We'll answer if we can," said Madison sincerely. 316 turned to Ryan. "Are you a typical member of your species, or are you considered ugly or feeble?" Normal, I guess." "Average," said Ryan, with a puzzled look. Madison sipped the water. It was cool and refreshing, without any detectable odor or taste. She drank it in gulps as she realized how thirsty she was. And are you of the appropriate age for marriage? Pressed 316. Yes. Yes, I am, said Ryan, looking even more confused and casting glances at Madison. The oven made a series of clicks, declaring that the fish was ready. A serving set, complete with utensils, emerged from the tabletop. 316 served them baked fish fillets and pointed to each utensil, reciting its name: fork, spoon, knife. He finally made a serving for himself opposite them and sat. "Oh, I almost forgot," he said, and jumped back up. A drawer behind him opened, and he retrieved two small objects. "Salt. I'm sorry we do not use pepper, so I do not have any. If you tell me what it is made of, I can synthesize it." He returned to his seat and offered the salt shakers. "Ryan, Madison says you are not interested in her as a mate." Madison nearly choked on her first bite of the fish and had to take a drink before responding, "I didn't say that. And shouldn't we be discussing more important things like how to get the cutter out from under the ice or answering questions about each other's history and culture? Have I betrayed a confidence? My family, the 16s, are also not good at keeping secrets." Ryan tried changing the subject. "What are the kite things?" 316 was observing Madison's use of the fork and knife. He attempted to imitate. "There is no direct translation. A good approximation would be sky spirits. They are the symbolic representation of those who died in the war. They also serve a practical purpose. They relay network signals." "A mesh network," said Madison, nodding. "That makes sense. As long as they stay up, you don't need anything else. No satellites, broadcast towers, or cables. That's so cool." Ryan also found it fascinating, but he was more concerned with something else that 316 had said. "So, you had a war. What was that about?" "Fragments of our species fought over resources. It escalated to the point of nuclear war. Most of my people lived in cities and perished. The nuclear winter that followed triggered an ice age that was not due for another millennium. We were driven to the brink of extinction. Now we live in geographic isolation, connected only by the network. Never again." Madison and Ryan raised their eyebrows at this sudden outburst. "I apologize. It is a topic about which I am passionate." "So you live in isolation to avoid extinction? That sounds pretty lonely," said Ryan sympathetically. "It is bearable with the network. Also, we get together in small groups twice a year for—" The patterns of colors on his skin changed rapidly for a few seconds before settling back down. "I don't think we need the details," said Ryan quickly. "Oh, good. It's mostly just eating and talking, but there is always the opportunity for— May I photograph you? Or do you have a primitive superstition against it?" "We're not primitive," said Ryan defensively. "I have a smartphone." "I did not mean to offend you. It's just that your weapon is a projectile weapon, is it not? I detected the odor of propellant when you emerged from the ice." At the mention of their weapons, Madison and Ryan exchanged worried glances again. "We would only use them to defend ourselves," Madison assured him. "Please do not misunderstand. I am not concerned about you harming me. Your weapons are far too primitive to be effective against me. I merely wish to get your permission to use your images." "Sure, take all the pictures you want," said Ryan. "What do you mean when you say the weapons would be ineffective?" 316 ignored the question. "Actually, I have been recording you since you entered my home. I am just late in getting permission." "Are you here to invade our world?" asked 316, unconcerned. "We have many fictional stories about alien invaders. They always lose." "No, we're not here to invade," said Ryan firmly. "That is fortunate, because you would lose." "You don't know that," argued Ryan. "We're not as primitive as you think. We have lots of technology and weapons." "So you are an aggressive and warlike species?" "No, that's not what I meant," said Ryan, exasperated. He glanced at Madison for help. "Don't look at me," she said. "You started this my dad can beat up your dad stuff." She paused and pointed to her plate. "This fish is excellent, by the way." "Thank you, Madison," 316 said, and turned back to Ryan. "Do not take it as an insult. We are a war-loving species as well. I wish we were not. Many say we have changed, but I think that is just wishful thinking. War is simply no longer possible. That does not make us all peaceful. They are in denial, much like you and Madison regarding your relationship." "We're back to this again," said Ryan irritably. He pushed his plate away. "I can see why you've had so many wars. You can't stay out of other people's business." "We're just lost," said Madison flatly. She pulled Ryan's plate over and began eating the rest of his fish. "We were hoping you could help get our machine above the ice and maybe even explain how it works." 316's face changed to the barber pole of striped colors again. "You use a machine powerful enough to travel to other worlds and do not even know how it works. Primitive, warlike, and reckless. This is better than I had hoped. I will easily have the most popular story at the next festival. All the females will be impressed." "Now hang on. We do know how it works," insisted Ryan. Madison raised an eyebrow at that. "Well, I don't, but she does. Her little brother does too, and he's just a kid." Madison decided to try and calm the tone. "We could leave now, but it would be better if we could lift it above the ice first. We do know how to operate it, but we need help. Navigating. There doesn't seem to be a way to choose the next world, and we need to rescue my brother." "A rescue mission, a hero's tale. Yes, I can help. I will get more mates than 1219 ever had." "I think he's making a documentary about us," said Madison, amused. "Well, I think we should get back to the cutter and see if we can get it out before it drifts away," Ryan said, and rose to leave. "Don't worry about that. I tied it off yesterday," said Madison confidently. She tipped her plate to her mouth for the last of the fish before following Ryan. 316 hurried to lead the way. As they crested the snow-covered berm, it was apparent that there was something wrong. The ice fishing hut that was there the night before was a crumpled heap. 316 made a now familiar series of color flashes as they rushed to see what had happened. "I ran the rope around the hut," said Madison, disappointed in herself for not doing a better job of securing it. They stared down the hole. The cutter was no longer in sight. "I guess it sank and the rope destroyed the shack. I'm sorry, 316. "It is of no consequence. I can always build a new one. The gap of air between the water and the ice is transitory. Your device flooded and sank. I will retrieve it," he said, and jumped into the hole. Madison and Ryan exchanged a surprised look. "Okay," said Ryan. "I guess the discussion phase is over, and we're deep into the execution of the plan. How long was that rope? Do you think it will reach all the way up here from the bottom?" Madison shrugged. "No way to know, since we don't know how deep it is. Is this a lake, an ocean, an inland sea, or what?" "We can't see the other shore," Ryan said, and shaded his eyes with his hand as he strained to see across the icy surface. "So it's big whatever it is. Probably deep too." "He looks like an octopus. Do you think he can breathe underwater?" asked Madison, with growing concern. "Let's hope so. Or maybe he can hold his breath for a long time." A splash announced 316 as he flopped out of the hole with the end of a yellow braided nylon rope in one hand. "It's the latter," he said. "My species moved from the sea to land many eons ago and lost the ability to extract oxygen from water, but we are excellent swimmers." He handed the rope to Madison and stepped back to shake off the remainder of wetness from his furry clothing. "This isn't the rope I used," she said, confused. "It was too short. I tied several together. Your vehicle is well stocked. I also took the opportunity to examine it. Its simplicity baffles me. I have 4/5 of my brain working on an explanation of how it could possibly travel to other worlds." He was interrupted by the thumping footsteps of a giant machine as it approached. Madison and Ryan turned toward the sound. It was as tall as a two-story building and had 5 limbs. It resembled a large mechanical replica of 316, made from the same material as his house. The machine was translucent with a soft yellow glow. The limbs each had 5 jointed fingers, giving them both excellent flexibility and a slightly snake-like appearance. "No need for alarm," 316 said. "It is my tractor, for lack of a better word." When the machine came within 30 feet of the hole, several lasers fired from cloudy bubbles on its front limbs. The surface of the ice erupted into steam at the point of contact where the fan-shaped beams struck the ice. Soon, there was a perfectly square, cutter-sized hole in the ice. 316 handed the rope to his robot as it came closer. It turned 3 of its feet into spikes to dig into the ice, while the other 2 used the rope to pull the cutter slowly up from the bottom. Madison and Ryan watched in amazement. At no time did 316 use a remote control device or give the tractor a voice command. It seemed to guess what he wanted, like a well-trained dog. "You could have done this last night," said Ryan, stating the obvious. "Yes, but I did not know your intentions. I also did not want you to leave too soon. This is very exciting," 316 said, as the last of the yellow nylon rope was followed by a thicker blue one. "Any luck on solving the steering problem?" asked Madison. "Not yet. I understand all the parts of your device, but I do not understand why it does what it does. I suspect our brains are very different, and we approach problems in different ways." The blue rope finished its journey, and the tractor was now pulling Madison's original white rope. The cutter reached the underside of the ice with a loud clunk. The sound echoed across the frozen water. 5 smaller versions of the tractor leapt off its back and dove into the water to align the cutter with the hole made by the lasers. As the cutter rose through the square opening in the ice, the tractor strained with the extra weight. Eventually, the lower edge reached the surface of the ice. It twisted free of the perfectly sized square hole. The tractor cautiously stepped back, bringing the cutter with it. The 5 smaller robots jumped out like performing dolphins and began steadying it. The large tractor dropped its heavy load onto the ice as soon as it was away from the hole. "We should step back," 316 said. They retreated to the shore as the tractor tipped the cutter onto its side with the hatch at the bottom. The rush of water out of the door brought a few of the lighter items with it. Some were washed back into the water but were retrieved by the smaller robots. Madison and Ryan approached the hatch and saw the soggy contents. "What a mess," she said. "Can you fix it, Maddie?" asked Ryan. Madison slowly blinked and cocked her head to the side. "Nothing's ever too munted for me, you know that." "Of course." "Sorry," said Ryan. "Munted?" asked 316 curiously. "It means broken beyond repair," replied Ryan proudly. He grinned at Madison. "What do you need me to do, Maddie?" "Heat," she said. Ryan found the extra batteries and began uncoiling an extension cord. 316 was studying Madison intently. She had unlocked the Van de Graaff generator from the floor and removed it. As soon as she was a safe distance away from the cutter, Madison sat it down and began drying it with a can of compressed air. "That is the one piece of equipment I did not understand," he said. "It seems to be nothing more than a motorized belt and a shiny ball." "Yup, that's all there is to it," she said, and flipped on the power. Nothing happened. Madison pointed the stream of compressed air at the motor. "It builds up a large static charge. They usually don't do anything but make your hair stand on end." She glanced at her hairless friend. "It's like petting a cat in the winter when the air is really dry." "I have never owned a cat, and I do not like dry air," he said. "Sparks? Doorknob? Carpet? Any of this familiar?" asked Ryan hopefully. "No," 316 said with growing curiosity. "If I get a doorknob, a cat, and some hair, then I can travel to other worlds." Madison laughed. "No, you don't need a cat." "Are you sure? Because I can make one. I have a friend with some DNA. He made one that looked like this. He displayed an orange and black tiger stripe pattern on his face, but it had a very disagreeable temperament. She was still laughing. No tigers. You don't need a cat of any kind. You just need the nickel steel box, the generator. She tapped the shiny ball, and my shock spread across her face, and she stood from her crouch. What? Asked Ryan in alarm. Madison carefully backed a few steps away from the Van de Graaff generator and exhaled, and my earring, which Ryan is now going to hold for me way, way over there while I work on the generator. She handed the earring to Ryan, and he backed a few more steps away. We can also use it to talk to her brother if both ends are in very quiet places, explained Ryan. Daniel, can you hear me? Daniel's long, boring classes in school had taught him how to split his attention between his teachers and his own thoughts. He had been listening in fascination to the conversation between 316 and his sister while simultaneously listening to Fate's ramblings. Your brother is also on my world. No, he's stranded in another universe, said Madison seriously. At the thought of communicating across the divide between different universes, 316 treated them to a new and longer display of colors across his face and hands. I think you finally impressed him, said Ryan as the heater came on. Would you like to say hello? 316 ran over to Ryan and shouted into his hand, Hello! He speaks English? Asked Daniel's voice from Ryan's hand. I do. My name is 316, he said, still shouting. I'm sorry. I am nervous. I have never spoken to another universe before. Hello, 316. I'm very pleased to meet you, said Daniel politely. He thinks he might be able to come up with a way of steering the cutter, said Ryan optimistically. I have an idea about that too, said Daniel. We cut that first time in the early evening and arrived at the desert world. You did your first cut in the early morning but didn't get to the desert world. The Earth is spinning toward the east. That means that even a stationary object at the equator is actually moving at 1,000 miles an hour because it's sitting on the surface of a spinning ball. Imagine the view of Earth from space, high above the North Pole. Now, look down at the rotating Earth and imagine us as we were cutting in the early evening. We were moving in a direction towards some constellation in space. I don't know which one. Let's say Scorpio. Now, fast forward that image to early morning, the Earth has rotated quite a bit. And you and your cutter are now moving in a different direction, like toward Orion on the opposite side of the sky. If all the dimensions are connected in some way, even the higher ones, then the time you leave might determine which universe you shift to, because you're already moving in a different direction. Maybe all we have to do is time it right. Ah, I get it, said Madison with excitement. All we have to do is wait 12 hours after we arrive, and the surface of the Earth will be moving in the opposite direction, from the perspective of space. It's so obvious. It is not obvious, 316 said with quiet reverence. Your species does indeed think differently. I am impressed. But this means you have a problem, added Daniel seriously. Since you are falling in that first world, you'll not only need a 12-hour time difference, but also... We'll have to be flying upward, whispered Madison. Crap. Oh, I can help, I can help, I can help, 316 shouted and ran back toward his house with 3 of his limbs flailing in the air for balance. Madison and Ryan looked at each other in confusion. Do you think he has a plane? Asked Ryan. It would have to be pretty big to lift this thing, and then it would miss the trip when we cut. I don't see how that would work at all. Well, let's go see what he's so excited about, Ryan said, and led the way back to 316's house. The front door opened for Madison and Ryan as they approached. 316 was already at his computer, manipulating various controls with 3 of his limbs, red boots swinging beneath his chair. Madison and Ryan stood behind him and tried to make sense of the enormous computer display. Ryan noticed that 316 could manipulate 3 controls at once. So, are you right-handed or left-handed? Asked Ryan, grinning. 316 kept up his furious pace, but turned to look at Ryan curiously. Neither. My cousin is left-handed, but I am center-handed. He turned back to his work. One section of the display showed a large shell of scaffolding around a long, narrow cigar-shaped object that was slowly taking form. The movements of the machinery and robots were so odd that Madison couldn't tell whether it was a live video feed or an animation. Ryan leaned in for a closer look, but turned as Madison gasped. "Crikey, Jiminy," she whispered with reverence. Ryan found the section of the huge display Madison was staring at, a framed rectangle with a simple line, drawing from the dictionary. It was an airship. "Is that the Hindenburg?" he asked in disbelief. "No," 316 said with a bit of scorn and pointed to the legend at the bottom of the image. It said, USS Los Angeles. The book said it was the only airship in the U.S. fleet that did not crash. A good omen. I heard you say yesterday that you were disappointed in the lack of airships in my world. I did not understand you at the time, but I remembered. He tapped his head with one finger. Are you making this? Asked Ryan, studying the frenzied activity. Right now? Of course. My fabrication tools are at my hunting home. He pointed to the live video feed. So I am building it there. This is my fishing home. I do not usually build things here. It will be finished by tomorrow. If all goes well, it will operate exactly as your device with a few improvements. I hope you will like it. There was only one illustration in the book, so I have made many assumptions about how it functions. And it can fly upward, whispered Madison, her eyes filling with tears. We can save Daniel. She kissed 316 on the top of his grey, fleshy head, and he froze. That was a kiss, explained Ryan. A gesture of affection or extreme gratitude, 316 recited, and resumed his frantic manipulation of the computer controls. Is the appropriate response? You are welcome? Yes, that'll do, said Ryan, suppressing a grin. You are most welcome, Madison, 316 said formally. And I hope Ryan does not now perceive me as a rival and attempt to kill me in my sleep. I am a light sleeper. He would fail. Ryan's eyebrows shot up. Okay, let's not worry about sleeping with one eye open yet. It's like a peck on the cheek. Non-romantic. Very well. I will likewise cancel all plans to kill you in your sleep, Ryan. A tense silence followed. 316 finally broke it with, Is laughter not the appropriate response? That was a joke? Asked Ryan with shock, slowly draining from his face. Of course. A mundane situation punctuated with a ludicrous word or phrase. I would not murder you, Ryan. There would be no advantage in it for me. Is this not obvious? In the future, I will avoid any humor that requires thinking. He finished what he was doing on the computer and turned to face them. We should bond over another meal. It will ease the tension Ryan now feels because he did not get my joke. Let me guess. More fish? Said Ryan sarcastically. Of course. What else does one eat at the fishing home?